Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, friends. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so delighted to have you here, and extra delighted if you were also with me yesterday as we started our Word of the Year workshop. Oh my gosh, I love beginnings, as you know, and I love the beginning of a new year, and I love just the intention that this time invites us into, and the fact that you have heeded the call and that you have listened to that invitation as well, and you are setting aside time with me to really think about how you want to show up in this new year and how you want this whole thing to go for you, and how does it look to be the deliberate creator of your own experience, and how do we do that, and if that's true, how is that true, and all of those good things. And we are diving into those questions together. We are opening ourselves up to guidance and the answers to those questions, and we are doing it in beautiful, gorgeous, expansive, supportive community, which is the only thing I am available for. So if you are just super sad that you didn't even know we were doing that and you feel like you missed the whole thing, fear not, my friend. Today is day 2 of the Word of the Year workshop. If you are listening to this on the 8th of January. If not, also, no fear. We recorded all of those. And so if that would be in service to you, you can still sign up, register for that, and then you will get all the recordings as well. And that link is down in the show notes. I'm super excited to know what your word is. I will tell you, I have gone a little rogue this year, and instead of choosing a word, I have chose a phrase. That's the extent of my rogueness. And my phrase is, let it be easy. And I have to tell you, I know last week I was telling you about how amazing it was getting into Paris and starting that beautiful trip in Paris and Versailles over New Year's. And I was so excited that I had already landed on this phrase of let it be easy for 2025, because coming home from Paris was also a total dream. So I had the beautiful good fortune to fly Mint on JetBlue, which I'm going to tell you, it's going to be really hard to go back. So we'll just set that intention. But I had such a beautiful flight home, so comfortable. The food was really good. The service was really good. The movies were really good. I'm pretty obsessed with the lie flat seat, all of those good things. But I was in row 2. And so when we got off the plane, there was a couple in row 1 and they were chatty. So I moved past them. And then when I arrived at immigration, I have global entry. I was the only person in there. And I, no joke, floated through immigration. You look right into the camera. I'm walking toward the immigration official, and she says, "Welcome home, Miss Wendy. Have a nice day." And I walked right through and did not pause from the moment I got off the plane until all the way I got to baggage claim. And of course, my bag is like the third bag off the carousel, and I'm whisked right into my waiting Uber to take me home. And it was so dreamy and delightful. And I just thought, oh, thank you. Thank you, God, for this beautiful experience that is going to remind me what it looks like and feels like to let it be easy. And I love that I was able to experience the beauty and possibility of that so early in the year. And I'm just looking forward to recreating more and more fabulous, easy experiences as 2025 unfolds. Now, I have also told you that this podcast is no joke, the easiest, most fun of all of the fun and fabulous things that I do. And I love that we just get to keep doing this. This is so great. So thank you. I only get to keep doing this because you're listening. So I really appreciate you. I'm thrilled that you're here. I'd love to know what you're enjoying about this podcast. Are there any topics that you wish we would discuss? Any guests you think would be great? I want to hear all of it. Also, if there is anyone that you think would benefit from these conversations, would you share the episode with them and just invite them into our beautiful, sweet circle of goodness and light and yes? Also, if you are listening and you want to take a screenshot of the episode and tag me on Instagram, that would be amazing as well. I just would love to know. I'd love to know. I'm thinking about you, and I would like to know who you are. So, all to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Today's guest is, oh my gosh, just a powerhouse. And one of those people that when you're listening to her bio, reading her bio, thinking, oh my word, how does this woman even have time to have a conversation? And let me tell you why I say that. Kash Rocheleau is the chief financial officer for 3 different companies: Icon Foods, Guy Gone Keto, and Key Capital Investments. She is also now the CEO of Icon Foods. She's the co-owner of the Reset Button, a one-stop shop for ADAS collaboration services, where she manages the financial aspects of a business, such as budgeting, cash flow, investments, and tax planning. She is passionate about helping businesses achieve their goals and solve their challenges using her finance expertise and entrepreneurial mindset. She is, like I said, a powerhouse, and just like us, really desiring balance, desiring to hold space for herself, to say yes to herself in ways that benefit her personally as well as her family. She is a wife, she is a mom, she is an entrepreneur, she is in corporate, in the C-suite. She is doing all of these things, and she is like us in so many ways. And I just invite you to exhale with us as we both took a break from her very, very demanding schedule and my demanding schedule in its own way, for this beautiful conversation. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Kash, I am so delighted to have this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. So I would love to start our conversation just with the question I ask all of my guests, and that is, how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
So I have been thinking on this question actually for a couple days, and
Yay.
it sounds a little oxymoron, but saying yes to myself in this season is saying no to things, which is very different from my personality and very hard. But just in the season of life I am in right now, I found that the constantly saying yes to please people has put sacrifices on people that don't deserve to make those sacrifices.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, so I'm a very type A driven person and I love that and the people around me I think thrive on that type of personality. But in that, climbing the corporate ladder and wanting to excel at everything that I do, the day goes by very fast. And as a mom with three kids and a wife in a long-term marriage, you find that the day goes by so quickly that you start to look back on what did I miss out on and what are the things that people are going to hang on to. And I just got to a point semi recently where I internalized I got this far in my career. I got this project done today, or I didn't have to ask for an extension, but it was at the mercy of missing my daughter's cheer practice or missing just that short drive to daycare or being at the bus stop, just simple things in life that I realized those are the little moments that I don't get back, but more importantly, my kids don't get back. And my my oldest, who's 11, said right before I started to internalize this that he was telling me all the things that everyone in our household is good at. Daddy's really good at working on cars and Sissy's really good at being mean. And when he got to me, what he said I was really good at was working. And that was a moment for me that was like, ooh, like some people in my life are getting the best of me and not that I am not a good mom. I think that I am in many ways, but I think that my kids deserve more than my mom is a really good worker. So, long story short, my yes to myself right now is saying no to the things that I could delegate. And in that, it also allows me to empower the people around me and look at things in a way that they could be done more efficiently. And 9 times out of 10, they're actually done better than I can do them.
I love every single thing about this for you. It's so beautiful. And I love that was so generous. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
of
that.
course.
And I love just the space that you're holding for yourself
Mhm.
to investigate what your preferences are in this season,
Yeah.
and you get to, even when you said the way that you're saying yes to yourself is by not saying yes to other people.
Mhm.
Saying yes to other people is not how you say yes to yourself anyway. So I just think it's really fascinating
Mhm.
how sometimes the things that we repeat in our heads, the soundtrack, it makes so much sense and it's so compelling. And as soon as those words fall out of our mouth, we say, oh, that actually is not in alignment with my value system. That is actually not what I want to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think even in what it does for me and what it does for the people that I truly care about, it also has been super eye-opening on on the corporate and professional side of things because I've been awarded a lot of opportunity at arguably a very young age. And I'm grateful for all those opportunities. And a lot of that is because someone said yes to me and gave me a chance. And so being type A, it has its pros, but it definitely has its cons. And you have this mentality as a type A personality, like no one can do it better than me.
Mhm.
It's got to be perfect.
Mhm.
It's not going to get done in my timeline if I don't do it the way that I do it or if I don't do it. And I think a lot of that can be true, but in that I'm taking away those same opportunities that I was awarded from people and and I'm taking up time that is not the best use of my time. And so it's also been very fulfilling to see people around me have the opportunity to blossom and have some of those same opportunities in this journey for myself.
Right? It's amazing the ripple effects of our decisions
Mm.
go far and wide, and many times we don't see the results. So I
Mhm.
love that you are being so present, that you are aware of how this is affecting you professionally, how this is affecting you personally
Mhm.
in your role as wife and mother, but also in your many roles in your career. I said this before we hit record. I completely anticipated that you would be 75 years old based on your bio, and also slaying it at 75, and you're not. I mean, you look like you're 23, and so I love that also. And I'm feeling I am not 75, but clearly you're elder, and I might cry when I say this just because it's important, and my listeners know that this is how you know I'm not lying.
Mhm.
But I'm just so I'm so proud of you for making this decision that maybe was motivated because you thought you were making it for your kids, or you
Mhm.
thought you were making it for your husband, but you were really choosing you.
Mhm.
And when you do that, sorry, I'll get it together in a second.
You're okay.
That's why I live. It's my podcast. Like, you don't have to get uncomfortable because it's my thing.
I like it.
But when you choose you, everybody wins. And it's so hard to believe that
Mhm.
until we witness the evidence of
Mhm.
that. And you're allowed to, well, first of all, you get to have whatever you want, and you get to have all of it. And you totally do. And your kids do too. And your husband does too. Everyone gets to be the deliberate creator of their own experience. You get to course correct.
Mhm.
It will not negatively impact your career,
Mhm.
because that's impossible, because you're the deliberate creator of your own experience. It will not negatively impact your parenting, because you're making decisions. It will not negatively impact your marriage, because you're in it. Like, you are present, you are making these decisions, and you will not miss out on what is meant for you.
That's really well said. Just so your listeners know, I am not 23. I don't
You
feel
look like
it.
you're 23. Let's talk
I
about
don't,
skin
I
regimen next
definitely
then.
don't feel it. I have skincare that has helped that. Uh, Definitely not 75, somewhere in the healthy center of that range.
Yes.
I definitely, there's days where I feel 75. And I think, you said that so beautifully, and that again, hindsight is 2020. As you start to go through some of these journeys, and life, I truly believe is seasons, right?
Yeah.
There are seasons where putting yourself first is really putting other people first, and there's seasons where you truly have to put yourself first so that you can actually pour from that cup. But hindsight is 2020, because again, being that type A personality that I am, relinquishing the control is hard, and there are
Yeah.
days that it still is hard. There's
For
days that
sure.
I shut down the computer, and I have those frustrations of, if I would have just done this myself.
Yeah.
But you look back, and like you said, you see the fruits of those decisions. For me, do I want to drive across town to do the daycare drop off? Not
Oh,
really, but it's the moment, right? It's,
right.
it's what it gives to the other person. And as you're singing the ABCs for the millionth time,
Right.
you realize that it brightened his day.
Right. And you also don't want to homeschool.
Absolutely.
So
I
driving across
actually,
town is now
no,
incredibly
nope, I'm not
short.
interested.
That's
COVID
right.
happened. My oldest was kindergarten
Yeah,
when
mine too.
COVID happened. And so I've been there, done that, and have no interest. But you just, you see again pouring into other people. And again, it's this ripple effect. So you pour into a 4-year-old and you see how it affects their day and turn it fills your cup to be able to fill someone else's cup. So it's kind
That's
of
right.
this like
Right.
this vicious cycle. But it's such a positive cycle.
Yeah. You have to inhale and exhale.
A hundred
Inhale and
percent,
exhale.
100%. And I also, as I age, get closer to that 75-year mark, you realize that time is such a thief and it seems to go faster. I don't know how a minute is only 60 seconds because
Right.
the time is just going so fast. And once it's gone, it's gone. You cannot get it back.
Where are you noticing time going faster than you anticipated?
Definitely with parenting. I mean, when you see kids in, I've loved every season. My youngest is 4 and my oldest is
Mhm.
11, so I'm really like in this thick of it in both
Right.
extremes. But I really just blink and
Yeah.
it's like I was just holding him after
Mhm.
delivery and now if I like blow him a kiss at school, it's like, Mom, what are you
Yeah.
doing? And so knowing that he's 11, I've already half of my time, my for sure allotted time with him is already gone. And that's hard to grasp that half that time is gone. And I was reading an article a few weeks ago, I think it was in the New York Times, about by the time your kids are 9, you've already spent 50% of the time you're going to get with them. And
Mhm.
so you think about that and you're like, yeah, I mean, my parents are still active in my life, but it's a phone call or a text when life is
Right.
spinning out of control or a dinner here or there. It's not morning till night. And that's where time is really flying by. And then you look at marriage and it's like, we're getting ready to celebrate 14 years and we were children.
Right.
I said I do. So, and I think in those two aspects specifically, the clock just gets faster and faster.
Yeah.
Work, it's funny because, when I look at the timeline again and the opportunities that I've been allotted, it's been a short period of time, but so much has happened in that time that
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it's been as short as it has. And I'm in such a fast-paced industry that
Mhm.
you can't really ever get comfortable in the food industry specifically, but it just doesn't seem to slow down and you can't get comfortable. So I would say those two areas, but that's where a lot of my life is focused on right now is, work and
Right.
family.
Right. I appreciate that. And of course, I can completely resonate with the parenting piece. I only have one child, and she's also 10 and was in kindergarten during that blessed year. And
I
yeah,
see you.
thank you. I was just telling someone last night, I remember the first week that school was canceled, and she was in half day kindergarten, and
Hmm.
it was 11:30 in the morning, and I was still printing all the papers with all the links that they wanted us to do that week. And I thought she would be getting on the bus in 15 minutes, and I am still printing all of this paper. And I wrote on a sticky note, I feel like I'm losing myself. And it
Yep.
was the first Monday, and I thought, "Oh gosh." And, at that point, we thought it was gonna be 2 weeks or something. And I'm so happy that I had that visceral of a reaction,
Yep.
because it kept me aware, and it kept me like, I my commitment to myself is real. I will not lose myself in this, and I will not lose her in this. And there were a lot of things that I lost in that time, and there were a lot of things that I chose to complete with as a result of that time. Fewer things I let back in when we were opening our borders back up. I
Yeah.
was pretty restrictive on what I let back in, and I'm grateful for that. And it's just been a practice of presence
Mhm.
ever since.
You know what's funny is before I had kids, and again, this is like that hindsight is 2020. Before I
Mhm.
had kids, of course, I had all the judgments and I had
Oh, yeah,
everything figured out. And
totally.
how do you not have your kid under control? And your kid should sleep through all of the things.
Right.
I
And
was
eat all the
so
food and
naive,
all the things.
so
Yeah.
naive. And then I had mine, and I was the same as you. I was talking to actually two different moms yesterday in separate conversations. And now having three, which again just blows my mind that two people create three completely different humans.
Right.
I was telling one of them, give yourself grace. Like
Yeah.
she's actually in my neighborhood, and she had our kids over on Sunday and we had her kids over on Saturday, and she ended up calling us on Saturday saying my youngest is having a massive tantrum. Like I just I don't think it's the best environment for your kids, and fine. Like it happens, right? You know, like
Right.
mine had a meltdown today because today he doesn't like apples. And
Right.
so I was just kind of telling her, like, give yourself grace. Like
Yeah.
you're out here doing the best you can, and that's all you can do, right? Like
Mhm.
eating yourself up isn't going to be hard. But and I was telling the other one, you know, it's all seasons. COVID for a lot of people, I had a lot of conversations with moms during that time that they loved it because they got time back with their kids.
Mhm.
I I think that I was, you know, when we talk about fight or flight, I was definitely, I don't know which one, but it was not
Mhm.
healthy. We had just, my husband deployed the October before,
Oh, my word.
and I had my youngest that January before COVID.
Oh,
I was a CFO at the time of the company that I'm still with. And then I had to pick my oldest up at kindergarten. And my first question to the teacher was like, how long is this gonna last? It's like,
yeah.
I don't know. And so in this, I have a newborn, no husband, a year and a half year old, a 5-year old that now has to figure out how to type emails, but doesn't know how to
Right.
hold a pencil. You're running finances for a company. And so in that moment for me, I'm like, I don't want my time with back. Like
Yeah.
them going to kindergarten, that's like my break. But again, it's just, you know, everyone is in a different phase of life, and
Right.
remembering to give grace is so important.
Yes. And we are the only ones that can give that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's the giving it is one hurdle, the receiving of it, even when we're our own giver, is such
Yeah.
it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And to learn that, you mentioned perfectionism, and I am a recovering perfectionist. I
Mhm.
moved from California to Massachusetts and bought an antique farmhouse on a
Mm.
small farm. And now I turned it into a bed and breakfast, and I'm a flower
Oh.
farmer. And that place has cured me of
Mm.
perfectionism because it's alive, and
Yeah.
neglect is the enemy. And if any segment of my life has taught me that I am doing the best that I can with the tools that I have, it is that. And to learn that perfectionism is a trauma response
Hmm.
is also so enlightening. And to think, whom am I trying to be perfect for? And
Hmm.
what do I actually fear is the punishment for not being perfect? And so often when someone is talking about perfection, they say, well, it's not perfect. And I feel like there's nothing is.
Mhm.
that we've created. You know, we might in retrospect say, oh my gosh, that was the most perfect day. I loved every single thing about that.
Yeah.
But no one was striving for perfection in the creation of the day, which is probably why it felt perfect, because there wasn't expectation associated with it. So it's just this really fascinating concept that is so present in our culture, in our vocabulary,
Yeah.
in our own expectation of ourselves. Yet there's this equal understanding of that it is either elusive or, in fact, non existent. Yet
Mhm.
we are all striving for that.
Yeah. That's actually a really interesting point that you said that it's a trauma response. And I hadn't really ever thought of it like that, but I think that that is really a great way of wording it. I was so recently I moved from a CFO position to a CEO position, which I think on paper everyone strives, to climb the corporate ladder. And a CFO really gets to be strategic, be in the
Mhm.
numbers, be, you know, introverted. And you have a fail-safe almost with a CEO, right? You can feed information, you can feed ideas, you can feed whatever you want to feed. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with the CEO,
Right.
and they make that ultimate decision wherever they want to take it. And that's been the biggest change for me is now
Mhm.
I get the information fed to me, and now I'm responsible for a company full of people. And there have been some tough days in those transitions. And I was speaking with our chairman of the board last week, and I ended up in tears. And it kind of, the root of it was kind of this perfectionist piece. Like I
Mhm.
feel like I'm failing, and there are days that are really hard. And, he's like, you're not failing, but being in finance, I'm sure a lot of my finance people out there listening can relate. You're very, very introverted and
Mhm.
very, I would say that sometimes misunderstood. And
Mm.
going into that CEO position, you kind of you can't be introverted, and you have
Right.
to, if you are misunderstood, you've got to be able to communicate that.
Mhm.
And one of the things that he mentioned is no one here expects you to be perfect. Like, you can fail, but be vulnerable and bring them along the process.
Mm.
And I think for me in that moment, it was a light bulb of, I knew and know that I'm not perfect and there are days that are really
Right.
hard, but the imperfection is that my team knows that, because I don't expect perfection from my team. I
Right.
I wholeheartedly want them to fail and learn from those mistakes.
Right.
I truly believe there's more learning in the mistakes than there is in the successes. And
Absolutely.
so in that moment, it was, you're talking the talk but not walking the walk, right? You're expecting them to be vulnerable and make mistakes and be there to support them, but in that you feel like you can't. And so I think that that's a really beautiful way to say that it's a trauma response. I don't know that there's a lot of trauma there for mine, but yeah, as a perfectionist, I think the trauma is the
Right.
fear
I
of
mean,
failing.
there's something that makes we wouldn't be afraid to fail unless
Yeah.
something happened when we did, or the fear of it has
Mhm.
informed the perfection that we're seeking. And it's so fascinating, of course, the quote of we teach what we need to learn.
Mhm.
So it's just interesting that in your conversation with that mom earlier this week, in encouraging her to show herself some grace,
Mhm.
and it's exactly what your board chairman was saying to you, and exactly what you're expressing to your team. And it really does shift everything in our own energy when we look at any situation and have a realization and a true knowing that this other person is doing the best they can with the tools they have.
Mm-hmm.
And I am equally doing the best I can with the tools I have. And everyone else is doing that too. And in that, I think there is so much built in grace
Mm-hmm.
and so much, it's true. It's when you try, when not you, but when a person tries to hide it or cover it up, or
Mm-hmm.
it's anything that you read in the newspaper of someone being exposed. It's like, gosh, you had so many opportunities to just own it, but when you dig your heels in and you're committed to this narrative that is not true, it's just not going to end well.
I also think it's relative too. I think that that's something super important for anyone to understand is that it's relative, specifically I think about this in all areas of my life, but specifically when we're talking about the COVID era, you know, my difficult was having three kids, one of them being a newborn, while
Right.
I'm trying to recover and physically, hormonally, all of the things during COVID with a husband that's deployed. Like that was my hard.
Yeah.
But I also have to understand, and I was not perfect at this. Still, I'm not perfect at it. But when someone gets to Starbucks and their coffee is wrong or late or not ready or any of those things, like that's their hard, and that might
Mhm.
be their version of raising three kids while a husband's
Right.
deployed while recovering from
Right.
labor. And I think it's very important to realize that so much of what people go through is relative, and we can't compare one person's hard to
Oh
another,
gosh,
or
no.
one person's um struggles, failures, difficulties, hard days at work,
Mhm.
hard times in life to another, because we have not walked the same.
No. Exactly. I remember again during the COVID times, and people were saying, we're all in this together. And it's true, it happened globally. And I heard a woman, I can't even remember who it was, that said, we might all be in the same river, but we're not in the same boat. Some
Mhm.
people were in yachts, and some people were hanging on
Yeah.
to a piece of wood that went
Yep.
by. And there was so much of, I feel like, built-in understanding because it was global. It wasn't like you needing to explain, oh, my husband was just deployed. And it was just everything was happening to everybody all at once.
I think that is so beautiful because I don't know how we got here, but
I know, but I'm here
I'm
for
here for it.
it.
COVID, I had a neighbor, and again, this is just like my own preconceived notions that are not right and still happen unconsciously today. But I had a neighbor across the street, and she's actually become one of my best, dearest friends. And for 2 years, we had lived across the street, never really connected, kind of like, hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? And we each had our own preconceived notions about each other, just on like
Mhm.
what we saw. But come to find out, she was a teacher and her husband was also a teacher. And, we got to talking one afternoon, and she stepped into my life and was like, let me help you. You're not
Mm.
a teacher. Let me help bear some of this burden in teaching your kindergartner. And for me during COVID, it was so special to see, whether we were on yachts or inflatable tubes in there,
Right.
the people that came around each other, like just that willingness. and
Yeah.
and even in that conversation, it was like, you need toilet paper, you come over and I got you some toilet
Right.
paper, we'll run out together. It's
Yes.
just that. And that is a piece that I miss from COVID, not only just in like the global aspect, but
Mhm.
even in sometimes my own life, where
Mhm.
I remember the generosity, the ease of the grace. Almost,
Yeah.
it was almost not even questionable. Like, if you need toilet paper and it's my last roll, fine, like we'll figure this out together.
Right.
And I think that things just get so comfortable that you kind of slide back into those old habits or routines. And I think that if we could live in the COVID era just for that piece, for people having more grace and understanding and patience for each other,
Mhm.
I would probably redo it in a heartbeat, even through my own personal hardships.
Right. And I think, obviously we'll make the disclaimer that we're reasonable humans and awful things
Mhm.
happened and all those things.
Yep,
All of our listeners know that we are not sitting on our yacht drinking champagne right now,
absolutely.
watching the poor people. Anyway,
Absolutely.
obviously, but I'll say it anyway. Um, I agree.
hmm
I It was a really pivotal time in my life, and I believe that it was so pivotal because of what was happening globally,
hmm
and it was the absolute perfect recipe
hmm
for creating the life that I have right now.
hmm
And it's how I needed to do it. And I know that there are lots of people that had very beneficial experiences based on the changes that were required to make and
hmm
that they would not have made otherwise. And I think that you get what you're looking for.
hmm
And if you want to focus on everything that was terrible and how nothing's the same and how awful that is, you're
hmm
going to find evidence for that. And if you are seeing that some really great things came a part of that, just a depth of friendship
hmm
in proximity to where we live. That was really, really special. And I missed that too. I missed
Yeah.
that those were the only people that I was allowed to hang out with. And I really
Yep.
enjoyed that
Yep.
limited. I mean, you, as an introvert, perhaps
Yep.
that was totally your jam. As
hmm
an extrovert, I embraced the few people that I could be around
hmm
in person and every single person with the Zoom account. Like I was That's when I started doing all of this and showing up on Instagram and shaking up a cocktail every Friday night and all these things that I've continued to do and built this community of people that are real.
Yeah.
It's a real community. We have real connection. People that listen to this podcast, you don't have to have met me in person
hmm
for this connection to be real,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, you said you get what you give, and there's there's that mindset of looking through things with the lens that you do. I mean, a lot of people look through lenses with positive intent, and a lot of people look through lenses with negative intent. And I would say most of us have moments where we look through both of them. And I think innately we look through things with negative intent. Like we're driving down the road and someone cuts us off, and it's instantly like there's no positive thoughts. But if we could just change that mindset to, are they getting to a mom that only has a few more minutes? Are they trying to get their wife
Right.
to the emergency room because she's in labor?
They just got
Um,
stung by a bee. Like, who
yeah,
knows?
right. And I think we don't have to be the same. And this year specifically has been really hard for me. I live in
Mm,
Utah, and for us here, what happens in November, I will leave it at that, is not going to affect my small town, right?
yeah.
We're going to continue to live the way we live with different views. But years like this year become very heartbreaking because I think
Mhm.
that we lose that ability to look through things with positive intent. And we don't have to agree. Like there's people that I work with that work for me that I don't agree, and I do need to be better at looking through things with positive intent, but we don't have to agree and we can still coexist, right? We
Yes.
don't have to vote the same way. We don't have to do a process the same way. We don't have to drive the same car, spend our money the same way, spend our time the same way. But there is something in every single person on this planet that you can find some sort of commonality with or
Yes.
positive attribute or learn something from. And I think again, we preach what we need to learn. But I
Right.
think if we could flip that that mindset to naturally look through things with a positive intent when we talk to people, interact with people, um, I think the world would be a much better place.
I agree. And we get what we look for.
Yep.
So if you're not having the experience you desire, then that's an inside job, my friend. And you can shift that and you can make decisions to support how you want your day to go. And of course, what's happening politically, and again, I just said this on a podcast earlier today, another interview, you can use that phrase, well, with things how they are now politically, that could be like any time in the last 3,000 years. It's always, there's
I
always something. And
yeah.
you do get more of what you're looking for. So you can just choose to disengage from what is not in alignment with your value system. And you can just focus on everyone can enjoy the beautiful sunset. How about that? Can we not argue about that? Can we
Yeah.
enjoy a gorgeous dahlia? There's hardly any
Yeah.
pollen, there's no scent. So even people with allergies can enjoy that flower. Like it's all good. And, but it takes intention, like you said, and it takes a decision and a commitment to change the neuro pathways of what you've been practicing for a good amount of time. And again, back to that commitment to yourself being real, you commit to seeing things the way that makes you feel good and feels good for your family and the people that you're close to. And you have to release
Mhm.
everybody else and what they choose to do, because you can't wait for everybody else to get on board with your good idea before you live the life you want, because that's how you end up at 75 and mad that you didn't live the life that you wanted to live.
Well, at the end of the day, you truly can only control yourself,
Mhm.
your emotions, your reactions, interactions. Like you
Right.
only have control of yourself. And for a type A person who thinks that I control my 4-year-old, like most days
Right.
he controls me, let's be honest here. But
Yes.
we can only control ourselves, how we feel in our actions. So and we all spend so much time worrying about the lack of control or why people act this way or speak to us this way. If we let that go, again, it would probably be a much better world because you're spending time on things that you don't have any control of changing.
Right.
Why waste your energy
Why?
that way?
It's an excellent question. Yes. Yeah, and it's not worth it. And it doesn't, I created a mantra for myself again back at COVID when all of these shifts in my personal mindset,
Mhm,
that's when that all started. And the my mantra is that I'm only available for what delights me. And that sounded very audacious, even falling out of my own mouth. I laughed out loud when I said it. And I was like, oh, that's how we're doing it now? Okay.
mhm,
And as I continued to practice that and created a new way of thinking, running every decision through that filter,
mhm.
of course, there are elements of I still have chores. I live on a farm. I'm parenting, maybe I didn't want to clean the chicken coop, but having chickens delights me. So there are responsibilities associated with the things that delight me. And I created a whole new way of being only in my own world. Everybody else still gets to do whatever delights them or makes them mad or whatever they're committed to. But it starts with me.
Mhm.
And because I changed the way that I'm seeing
Mhm.
the world changed for me.
That's a really great point. I've spoke to people about, how we see the world, and I think a big issue that we face right now, it again, it's a pro and a con, but social media. Like I think that social media is really hurting us as a population because and it can be politically or anything. Like you look on social media and you can get stuck in reels where you see husbands bringing home flowers every night, or taking their wife's car to the gas station every weekend, or all these things that maybe your husband's not doing for you, and you start to get in your own head of, well, then my husband must not love me. But you forget about all the other things that he's doing for you, and you can go down this rabbit hole with any topic on social media, but it kind of you kind of start to create these us versus them
Mm.
situations and everything, and what the world should be like. And I think we all say it, social media, we only get a glimpse of what's going on, or we only see the positive, and we forget that there is another side of this, and that it's not a one size fits all when it comes to marriage, parenting, work, whatever the case may be. But uh, actually, the beginning of the year, I said no to social media. I finally got off of social media because I started to realize, like you said, like I was letting this virtual reality kind of
Right.
dictate my life and
Mm-hmm.
dictate the things that I was and was not getting, and ranking my husband on a scale of how I was seeing other husbands treat their wives, or ranking myself as a mom based on the fact that I was not cutting my kids' sandwiches into fun
Right.
shapes for their lunch,
Right. Or
right?
the whole elf on the shelf situation. Oh
I
my
can't do it.
word. I
I
can't,
can't do it.
I am not available for that.
I fully support those moms out there doing it.
Yeah.
I wish I could be that mom, but I, exactly to your point, I started to look through these lenses of, wow, I'm a really crappy mom because I'm not doing Elf on the Shelf, or I'm a really crappy wife because XYZ. And that was a feeling that I was like, why am I letting this world dictate how I feel? Because I'm not a
Mhm.
crappy mom. Like my kids
Right.
get things that maybe those kids that get Elf on the Shelf don't get. And so I also think that that's a really important piece to all of this when we talk about creating this world and life that you want. Create it because you want it, not
That's right.
because society or another couple or mom says this is how you should do it.
Right. Right. It's all about having preferences. It's about course correcting. It's about choosing for yourself what's best for you and being present
Mhm.
in those decisions and knowing that a queen can change her mind,
100%.
right? Like you get to say yes when it feels good and you get to say no when it feels good.
100%.
I love this. I have loved this conversation.
Yeah, me too. This
So
is a fun
fun.
one. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Tell everyone where they can find and follow all of your magicness and compare themselves to your crazy bio.
Yep, I'm occasionally on Instagram. I tend to get on there about once a month just to see what's going on.
Good job.
Just at Kash Rocheleau. LinkedIn is where I really am pretty active. I am a big advocate in the no sugar space. and that's the industry that I work in with Icon Foods. So you can find me very actively on LinkedIn. And you can also find me on our company's website at iconfoods.com.
Fantastic. We'll link everything below in the show notes. And I know we didn't talk much about no sugar, but is there anything that you want to say? Is there anything that you want to add to the conversation about that?
Our business works mostly business to business, but I'm very, very passionate about this topic. So I would encourage any of your listeners, if they're not in the food industry and just want some help in how to reduce or limit or eliminate sugar from their diet, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to help glean some light on some things that you should avoid on your ingredient decks, and some great products that I would recommend.
I think it's so lovely that we didn't touch on that, because that is a very polarizing subject.
It is.
And I love that people have already realized how much they adore you. And now I can probably hear what you have to say about this sugar situation that I should avoid. So thank you. Thank you for your willingness to speak off topic. But relationship building and story is how we are all connected. And I think it's the most effective way to get those messages that we're passionate about across. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I have loved our conversation and I look forward to continuing it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.